Hello, welcome to this show of Industry Voice. And today we have someone across from the pond. I'm very excited about Rory, and I want to bring our audience your story. And today, welcome to the show, Rory.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Thanks for coming. So you are in UK and you are part of a lot of things that's moving and shaking over there. And this podcast is about people in insurance community, your influence, your personal influence around your community around you, and also just really talk about your own personal journey and your world, how you get into insurance. And then, I'm looking at your LinkedIn over here. You have worked for a couple companies, in technology, and at some point you pivoted from technology over to in the insurance world. And I'd love for you to talk about what led to each experience, and then also what do you guys find that's in the bill right now.
Fantastic. Well, there's an awful lot to unpack. But yeah, in the UK, I am heavily involved in the insurance community here, but also globally, which is why we're connected, and we've had lots of exchanges and LinkedIn, and that's the wonderful thing about insurance is this one big global community is there if you go looking for it. So we operate, Jeff, across multiple markets. So right now we're in the US, UK, Asia. We've just got a client coming in the Middle East. We're very geographically spread. So I get the benefit of looking at the insurance industry from all of those angles. Even the Pacific Islands, the Caribbean, we've got clients. So it's a wonderful industry and a wonderful network in this industry that you can create quite quickly. Do you want me to just talk about my journey when I started out? Because you mentioned the tech to insurance, and actually it's sort of I have a love-hate relationship with insurance, if I'm honest. But my story starts probably way back because I actually come from poverty, and actually I used sport to go to America to go to university. I played Division 2 basketball, but I got a scholarship and got an education. And I say that because my first interest in technology was probably through the lens of sport. Sport already in the late 90s was incredibly data-led and becoming increasingly so. And so weirdly, I'd already built a kind of a fascination with technology and what was happening in that space. And then I ended up back in university in Southampton and finished a degree in marketing. So I'd already kind of pivoted a bunch of times, right? And then when I left university, really the internet was starting to take over everybody's thoughts. And so I actually went into banking at first, really. My first big move into technology was banking. And I launched what was at the time the second internet bank in the world, called Kahoot. Probably not many people globally would remember that, but hopefully my UK people listening from the UK will remember it. But really what's important about that is we had to look at create an internet bank with no real reference, right? So we had no idea what one should look like, how it should operate. There was none of that constraint, really. This was building something new and interesting from scratch. So I learned an awful lot really back then about, bringing that startup culture to the corporate world. And really, actually, I've never really sat in a BAU corporate job in my life. So I've been in capital investors, I've worked in my own startups, and I've worked in these kind of unique jobs where I've incubated a startup basically in a corporate. So that's how I kind of got into banking, and banking led to insurance. So that's kind of how that sort of process occurred for me. Do you want me to keep going? I mean, yeah, there's so much journey there, right? I'm an old veteran these days, so there's a lot of years to cover. But that was kind of the first move really into banking and insurance was sort of out of having to pivot a lot in my early life.
So you made the pivot in 2022 to EIS.
I did.
For those of our audience who are not familiar with EIS, can you give us the
Yeah,
overview?
yeah, sure. I mean, we're a piece of software that you can run an entire, insurance life cycle on. And to not give all the technical details, because we're fairly new in this form of our technology, about 4 years. We're fully cloud native, yada yada yada, right? So it's got all of those brilliant principles. It looks a bit, if we draw our architecture, it looks a bit like Netflix or any of those guys. It doesn't look like the existing technologies in insurance. But what's really important about that is the amount of adaptivity we can create in our platform. We can actually hold any product in our platform, including insurance products, but you could hold a dash cam with a car insurance policy. It looks more like an e-commerce kit than it does an insurance kit. And it's built around the customer, not around policy. So one of the fundamental shifts we're trying to kind of help engineer is that all the data fluidity and extensibility that we can contain it around the customer, Jeff. So it's really important. And by the way, that's why I came back into insurance. So I said I had this love-hate relationship with insurance. I did a capital investor turnaround a while back. Then I started my own agency that was in insurance. Then I started my own agency, building out all the early kind of quote and buy systems and midterm adjustment systems in insurance that did incredibly well. We sold that. We earned out quickly. I had enough of insurance because most of what we would ask insurers to do that could create a lot of value, they couldn't do it, right? They were constrained by legacy. They were constrained by legacy mindsets as well and business models. And really, I suppose after 4 years of slogging out that earnout, I had burnout. I thought, this industry is not going where it needs to go. And then it took EIS to kind of bring me back in, really, because it's a foundational piece of technology that could genuinely transform an insurer. And I love this industry. Nothing can move without insurance. We can't do any of the things we'd like to do in most of the things we'd like to do in society and with our businesses, and without this industry taking some of that risk and making it slightly more palatable, even if that's purely economic. But the potential we have to risk mitigate, create more adaptive, resilient, environmental solutions, the opportunities that we have, I think, are still profound. And so I keep coming back to this industry and the people in it, right? I think actually the people like yourself who put me on this podcast just to have a chat because we had some interactions, that we've got shared network, that we believe in the same things, I think is something the insurance industry has that's fairly unique, having worked across lots of other industries. I think it's a brilliant industry. So it drew me back in 2022, so nearly 3 years ago now. And we've been on a fairly decent growth journey ever since. So it's still very exciting. Still, I think there's a lot of potential that even we need to unlock, but also that the industry still needs to make a big shift.
So you said something that made me go search, and the company on ES on LinkedIn says founded in 2008, and you've been there since 2019. You said it's a fairly new company. It's a pretty big company for fairly new. It's 1,069 employees on LinkedIn. So, what is the company breakdown? Like, what if you had to say, okay, our company is 27% US, 28% UK? I mean, what would you say the company breakdown is?
It's probably something similar to what you just said, Jeff. I honestly, we're growing fast enough that shape changes quite quickly. At the moment, our growth markets, being honest, are outside the US, continental Europe and other regions that we're opening up. We bought a business off Metromile, thinking back now about 18 months ago, that was now our Claim Smart product that's selling independently of our core platforms. So we've got growth in other areas and regions, but it would roughly break down as, if you took growth markets for us as being kind of continental Europe and sort of the Asia Pacific regions, that it's probably a third, then US a third, and then kind of a third other, because we've got other sort of regions and countries. So that's roughly the breakdown. In terms of our employee base, we're pretty dominantly actually a Eastern European business. So we won all our early clients and our initial clients in the US, Nationwide, Liberty Mutual, those kind of businesses. But all of our delivery centers sit in, Eastern Europe and Europe. We have a strong delivery capability and technology set up in Ireland. So we've actually always been a bit of a global company. So that's, I think, helped us to grow quickly. But yeah, we were founded a while back, but our new form of technology and platform capabilities are ultra modern and very new to this business, and have attracted investment and allowed us to scale. So in some ways, we feel fairly new, brand new, as opposed to just new. But yeah, I think we're actually over that number of employees now, so we're probably more like 1,300 employees.
Well, congrats on the growth. What would you say is your fastest growing market if you had to nail down a region that
Right, and really, right now, I think probably continental Europe, but you only have to win. The wonderful thing about a $6 trillion gross written premium industry with 300 billion of IT spend, you can win one big insurance client in one country and change the profile of a business like ours quite quickly. But yeah, at the moment, it seems to be mainland Europe but it will shift probably by the next time we have a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think the real opportunities are that's one of the difficulties I think we all have now is the opportunities are very broad, in insurance. I think there isn't, and we can hold any line of business on our software, which is also unique. So one piece of software, multi-line and multi-country. So we have clients that roll out across 8 markets in one go. And so there'll be, and it's not just languages, as you know, Jeff, it's regulation, law, everything kind of changes in this industry. And so, when we transcript, I call it, it's a substantial thing that we can do that for our clients. And so big multinationals can change your business quite quickly when they adopt software and roll it out like that. They can really change your business dynamics very, very quickly. And keeping up with them can be hard, right? Although insurance is slow, once it goes through it, it has capital and it tends to, if it sets its transformation up right, it can be quite a journey. And we go to MVPs in 9 months and with existing insurers, and that's tough going. So it's a really exciting market to be in.
In my mind of how I see, you talk to your clients, right? You probably talk to some legacy carriers, MGAs that's been around for 50, 60 years. Your challenge is for them to let go of what's been working for 56 years. And then the other side, you have incoming insurtech people who understand the underwriting, understand the demand, the need, and they need product to operate that in, right?
100%.
Which
I
client do
think
you think is harder to sign up?
I've got to choose one. I mean, legacy mindsets is worse than legacy technologies in insurance, honestly, because
Mhm.
one of the challenges we have to challenge a lot is, and this isn't to criticize insurers, but the way you'd want to buy technology to say, this is how I operate, how can you make it better? And you either risk optimizing something that shouldn't exist or not allowing those technology vendors to tell you how it could be completely different. And that's a problem. We've been lucky with clients that have gone and said, actually, we don't want to buy that way. We don't want to look at it that way. We're going to say, here's the problem to solve or the opportunity we'd like to unpack. And you go tell us how we should deliver that differently. And that's a good conversation for us. But I think from trading that off with insurtechs, I mean, insurtechs are, unfortunately, we have a history in insurance of sticky plasters, right? And insurtechs can do that. They can specialize and solve one part of the value chain incredibly well. Actually, we consider ourselves as part of that ecosystem. And what we do is try and look at how we enable those ecosystems and harness that. One of the things that we've done recently is harness a lot of Gen AI rather than try to deliver it through the core platform, because actually you want to put Gen AI around the customer, you want to contain it, you want a human in control, a human in the loop. And so you need to have the right foundations for that. So actually, rather than I'd have to choose the legacy problem as the worst, because actually we love the insurtech community. We've got 1,400 API integrations now at this stage with
Wow.
insurtechs. They're our partners. I could shout out to some of them, but the likes of SmartCom and those guys, we all enjoy a massively powerful relationship with all of those technologies, and even on the insurtech side, and they're doing fantastic things. There's a lot of deep verticalization in insurance, as you know. You can't do it all, but you can orchestrate all of it. So you can put all of it back in the employee and customer experience context. But what you need, if someone's really good at an insurtech's really good at managing repair networks or doing something really funky with repair assessments or whatever it is, what you want to do is actually integrate with them fast, harness all of their power and put that back in the hands of the customer and the employee, and that's what we do. So and I increasingly think our role and our value is that we help insurers expand their ecosystems. I looked at this other day, so this is why it's fired me up a bit. So I think we start with like 11 integrations, and then our insurers typically within the first 18 months end up somewhere around 57. So we really demonstrate that we can shift their ecosystem models quite quickly, which is great, right? It's fantastic they can do that.
Like I'm talking to you, and then like I have 5 questions, all like trying to find its way to the front of what I'm trying to ask. So now I'm just like, okay, you say you guys are new, but who's the legacy competitor in the space to EIS? Thank you for watching this video. Now a quick message from our sponsor, Mav.
Thanks, Jeff. I want to let you all in on a secret that top producing agencies don't want you to know about. If you're in P&C insurance, you know firsthand how much you're getting squeezed by your call center. It's becoming less predictable and less economically profitable to scale. But here's the thing. The top producing agencies making over $100 million are not running their leads through a human-based call center. They're running them through an AI expert like Mav to qualify, quote, and hand deliver the highest intent qualified leads to your agents. Mav takes care of the back and forth, having unlimited 24/7 conversations with your leads that are personal and relevant so you can scale to the moon. Ready to ditch your call center and 10x your agency? We're giving the listeners of insurtech $15,000 worth of credit to try Mav. Head to hiremav.com/insurtech to claim this offer.
Well, do you know what? I think anybody that's built fundamentally around a policy, I wouldn't describe us as a PaaS, and a lot of people might try and do that. I think we're a customer success platform, and I think insurers need to be built around customers. So I think also if you're not truly adaptive, and this requires a huge shift in the enterprise design of insurers, right? But if you massively increase the knowledge of a customer and your ability to act on it in insurance, and I don't just mean act on the risk, I mean act on the customer, then you are going to move away from price-led markets in P&C. You're going to move away from static books in life. You're going to start valuing customers. We've seen reactions of people reacting to issues of environment by the best thing the insurance can do right now is just remove themselves from those markets. It's not good enough, right? I just said I love this industry because we make things happen and we make the world move. You can't move without insurance. But if we just can't insure a home in Florida because of the flood risk, then that's not going to work. We need to start adapting insurance fast. So I think any of the platforms that are policy centric, built around really constraining and delivering that, in a sort of linear value chain model, I would consider to be legacy. And for me right now, I therefore consider most of our market legacy. I think the ones that are interesting in the lower tiers are that we admire a lot is companies like Genesis. I think we don't come across them in competition, but we can admire them, and I think we have good conversations with those guys because they're built on similar principles and they like to work in similar ways. But otherwise, I think one of the things I say is that one of the frustrations I had is I think technology has underserved insurance as well as insurance has misbought technology. So I think it's a combination of the two. And I think legacy mindsets is way worse than legacy technologies. I still believe that. I think some legacy technologies out there do a good job. But if they're still stuffed into a business model that only cares about policies and singular risk and doesn't care about customers and agents and this ecosystem we've just talked about and it doesn't have that extensibility and adaptability, then you're not going to change much, right? If transformation is a caterpillar to a butterfly, we take a caterpillar in insurance and we stick tiny wings on this fat caterpillar and it can't fly, but it just looks like it has the attributes of a butterfly. And I think if we're going to truly transform the caterpillar to a butterfly, it needs to be fundamentally built different.
I love the quote. You said it twice. Legacy mindset is worse than legacy technology. I have a story. I try to make all my podcasts about the guest, not about me, but I personally have a story from 2 years ago. Went to insurtech Vegas, ITC Vegas, and there was this panel speaking, and I thought the panel speaking did a great job. The couple of speakers that was there, and then there was a guy who was sitting next to me, and he was just so drunk, and he had quite a few. And then ran into him outside, and we know each other from LinkedIn. Said hi, and he was just like, "What do you think about insurtech?" I said, "Oh, this is this and that," and he was like, "Well, I think this is all BS." Blah blah blah. I was taken back by his statement, and then what was interesting was he sat there and then chatted with me for another 10 more minutes, and then I realized he's been drinking all day. And then I looked up his LinkedIn, and on his LinkedIn, he worked for a very big carrier, like a top 10, top 15 P&C carrier in the US. And his role was helping digital transformation for that specific insurance carrier. That was his role. And 2 years ago, I think there was like 400-ish vendors that's going to be there, all selling software solutions, tech, right? How to advance carriers, whether dealing directly to customers or through the agency channel or through claims. And this year is going to be 600, right? Like there's a lot of people who want to offer the product, and they just need somebody to listen to them, to understand what they're selling, to understand the technology they're trying to build. And this guy was his sole job on LinkedIn says he was the guy that's supposed to go find these solutions and bring it back to the carrier. And he was just there having a good time. And when you said legacy mindset, instantly brought me back to him. That the people say, "Oh, we've been doing this for 50 years. We'll continue to do it this way."
Yeah,
Anyways,
you get that idea of complexity. Here's the thing, right? We measure correctly, and it needs to exist, right? The ratios of insurance, right? So we need to price a risk, and you need these kind of healthy ratios. You need to be heavily capitalized, and you and I get all that, right? I think sometimes we are always in danger of, hopefully, most of us in this industry actually understand insurance in some form or another. You take Margot Giles; she absolutely understands why she's disrupting the agent space and what she's trying to do. It's not that she doesn't understand the complexity. She simplifies the solution because actually it is fundamentally simple. It's simplifying the experience, customer experience, the way of being more customer centric, enabling more agents to do more work more valuably. It is more straightforward for her. It doesn't come from not understanding the industry. The same hopefully is true for me. I get it. But I think we don't have also ratios for customer value. So take conversations that we need to have, which is if I could sell, and insurance is rubbish at this, but if I could sell multiple products to a singular customer, which is what we are trying to help make possible, right? I can look at a ratio of a customer very differently than I can look at a ratio of a policy. So if I looked at policy profitability, I might never be able to sell you that cover. But if you have multiple cover with me, I might say, do you know what? Your pet's risky, but I'm going to neutralize the ratio. It's going to be a profit neutral offering because you as a customer is highly profitable to me. And I really do think we've got those kind of unlocks. And actually, you just inspired what I also thought is we have a lot of lagging indicators in insurance, right? Not a lot of leading indicators. So we tend to optimize through these lagging indicators. How do you make this claims process better? Rather than say, I'd rather say, well, how do I throw it out the window and completely reimagine how you might operate a claim? Or maybe, as we've just discussed, not have one of those, a lot of those claims in the first place where we mitigate, or we've got very overly indexed risks in most insurance categories, escape of water in the home or flood, fire risk in warehouses, whatever. So we can work on these things in a very different way. And it is that mindset you just said, which would say, well, no, we know how to handle a risk in a price. So we're going to carry on doing that. And I think that model is at a tipping point. You can see a lot of viability issues. Now, I'm not an actuary. That's where I have to draw the line. Those guys have got different brains, but I also understand the overall economics of the business. You look at how badly we've responded to inflation in insurance because we can't contain. In some markets, inflation was 10% and we were 30% in claims costs. There's something going wrong there, right? So you've got to start parking these old ideas and saying, actually, this is making insurance unviable. I can't just continue to transfer all my cost risk into a premium, and I can't just continue to compete on price. So I've got to find something else now. And I think we are at that tip. Finally, those voices, the one that this is a good example. It reminds me of conversations I've had, but I think they're going, right? They've got to go.
you said a lot of good points. And one question I'm gonna go back to talk about community, and because you are from UK and there's a lot of my audience are US based, right? How do you talk to people on both sides, right? US side, UK side.
Yeah.
How do you see the culture difference of approach to insurtech? Thank you for all your support to our channel. Here is a quick word from our sponsor. Please click on the link below in the comment section to sign up for a demo with Track AI.
What if your insurance sales conversations could work harder for you? Meet Track, your AI-powered conversation intelligence partner. Track automatically captures and analyzes every customer interaction, providing instant call summaries, risk analysis, and AI-driven coaching insights. Say goodbye to manual note-taking and hello to more selling time. Track handles the admin work while you handle the revenue. Fully integrated with your favorite platforms. Plus, get custom AI analysis tailored to your unique business needs. Transform your sales team's performance with Track. Visit track.ai today.
Click the link in the description below to schedule a demo with Track today.
I think in US, the network side and the event side is far more mature, right? So I think actually, weirdly, the industries have far more similarities than we like to say. So when I travel around globally, but particularly this is even worse when you go UK, US, sometimes we refer to something in a different name, but it's the same thing. So we'll often get caught up with, oh, it's quite different. They have a blah and we have a blur. And actually, the way it operates is very similar. But in terms of the networking community side, I would say the US have formed, like people like you, who are actively driving communities. And communities are needed because this is an enterprise design challenge for most insurers. It's going to require a village to drive the transformation, and it does require all these interconnected relationships and perspectives. And I would say it's far more mature in the US, but it's very emergent in the UK. Like if you were to come over, I know a lot of my network here in the UK. They know you, they follow you, they engage with you a lot, and you engage with them, right? You've had some UK people on this podcast, so I think US is driving a lot of our community work in the UK. There's a benefit the UK has that so much of its industry is centered around London. It's actually a bit of a disadvantage from a talent and wider sort of industry engagement point. But if you want to network in insurance in the UK, you just take a train into London, right? And then there's a couple of pubs, quite a lot of decision makers will be having a beer on a Thursday night or whatever. So we have that advantage in geographic terms. But the disadvantage we have is you guys have a lot more singular events, focused opportunities, active participant communities that we simply don't have yet. But I'd imagine in the next 2 years, well, I'm hoping you guys, Lisa Wardlaw, the kind of the big figureheads of the industry that drive these kind of communities, are doing more and more work in the UK. And I see actually that happening across continental Europe as well. So I think we'll pick it up quick.
Yeah, I had somebody Melissa Collett from
Yeah.
insurtech UK on a show, and then she invited me to Linden. She was like, when you come out here, we gotta go do this, go do that. And I asked her about fish and chips, and she was like, that's just our comfort food. I was like, but I want to say I went to Linden and had fish and chips, and she laughed about it.
Yeah, got to do it then.
What
I mean, if
what
you guys
event?
get together and have fish and chips, I'll come along and have fish and chips. That's for sure.
What event would you look for? Like every year, US based event, what event do you look forward to yourself to go to?
As a business, we attend and participate in quite a lot of the big events. So we've got ITC this year coming up, Insurance Innovators in the UK. We'll do InsurTech Insights. Yeah, we do go for those big events. They are a lot of things. You have to value them from a lot of perspectives. They're great networking opportunities. You will get sales leads in the future. This is an industry that you might inspire somebody now and they'll buy in 2 years, right? So you have to accept that these events aren't direct sales, but they're great branding events. They're great, they create new spaces. I personally get up on stage and get around the press quite a lot, so I find that fun because you can say stuff. The nice thing in insurance is somebody like me who maybe has slightly challenging views sometimes, loves the industry but loves to challenge it. You can come off a stage environment in any of these events, and actually there will always be a couple of people that start gathering around and saying, hey, I liked you said that, but I thought this was difficult and I'm going to challenge you on it. And these are really great things that you can only get out of those events. In terms of wider stuff, we do a lot of our own as well. We partner the InsurTech hub, so the InsurTech UK, Melissa's team. There's an InsurTech Ireland team we're working with at the moment in Ireland. They're great. Shout out to Gary and the team. So with those smaller ones in the different countries and regions are really important as well. And then increasingly communities like the ones you form, and there's some good sort of university style based ones, which I'm really excited about getting engaged with, because we need talent, and we need young talent, and we need that diversity in this industry. One of the things that I would also say the US does slightly better than us is the true sense of diversity, right, and inclusion. And that's not a British cultural problem. It's actually more of we just haven't driven that talent through the industry. So I'm quite excited about the potential to drive that change as well, or be participant in driving some of that change. So we go for a lot of the events. I think you've got to socialize in this industry because there's a lot to learn out there. As you mentioned, 600. I mean, there's businesses like EY, and those guys will track 600 plus insurtechs. That's a lot. That's huge. I mean, fintech looks tiny in comparison if you really think about it. It's because it's a rich, complex industry. I often think, if you take banking, there's really three forms of banking. There's global banking and markets, which includes investments and sort of big trade stuff. There's business banking, and then there's kind of retail banking, consumer banking. Yeah, there's some product variance in it, but as markets, they sit fairly linearly. I think insurance, if you go from even in commercial, you go from complex commercial risk right at one end of the spectrum to, trade or van type insurance at the other end. It's all completely different. There's different communities, there's different people to talk to, and there's definitely different insurtechs solving for problems in those spaces. So that's just a slice of a slice of a slice, and that's very unique. So I think you've got to get out there, and we do a lot of that.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you at ITC Vegas, and I'm not sure if this episode will drop before ITC Vegas, but I had Bill Harris on the show,
Yeah.
and he said that this year they have over 55 after parties after 5 o'clock for ITC Vegas. That is a lot of walking, and that is a lot of.
Vegas, that is a lot of walking. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to this year because this is the first year I think AI is really here. There's like what 2.5 million developer working with ChatGPT alone, right? And it'd be interesting to see how much impact, like real world impact, it's gonna bring to people who are developing products. Whether it's new vendor or people who just been building the last 4 years, just adding AI to their solutions. And I think this is the first insurtech we're gonna see a lot of AI vendors, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, and in all the events this year, there's been a lot of AI. There's a lot of companies who just put AI before their logo or after their
There's a
logo.
lot.
That you and I know, you're going, oh, really? And actually, there's some that were always AI. They just didn't talk about it so overtly. I mean, AI is a spectrum of things, as you and I know. Generative AI is exciting for insurance because we have a lot of information volume and linguistics challenges, and that's an immediate, even in its current form, that's immediately useful. So I'm with you. It's exciting. We've got an insurance. We have to know how to harness it. It's not the gap is if you just think you're going to shove it into legacy mindset, legacy businesses, legacy business organizations. I think it's going to be very, very high cost to very, very low value creation. So I think we just need to see grown-up approaches emerging quickly. How am I going to harness this? I have to have someone in the control. I have to have someone in the loop. A machine answered this question, and that's all I've got. It's never going to be good enough for somebody in a claims process. You're going to have to think about how you build data fluid businesses that can create much more human value as well. I love AI to free human capital in insurance. I'd love AI to be focused on creating more meaningful human interactions because I think it can do that massively. And so I think in a way, I don't want insurers to just, my worry is insurers will just think about minimizing their costs with AI and maximizing their distributions. The best we seem to try and do sometimes is write the negative business case. I want us to think about how we can make employees and customers' lives exponentially better with AI because we can. And I think that's what I'm with you. That's what you want to see in ITC, right? You want to walk the floor in here. All right, you're taking out all the regulatory burden of filing. Fantastic. That means all those people go focused on making customers' lives better, and all that good stuff, right? And not all this sort of dross. And those are the solutions I love.
Rory, you have a lot of knowledge of our industry, and your ears to the ground. So I'm gonna put all of your link in the chat section. So if people want to connect with you, I'm gonna put all that in the chat section in the comments.
Fantastic.
And please go over to LinkedIn and also connect Rory and follow him if you have not followed him. And I am personally looking forward to connect with you in Vegas. But before I let you go, a year from now, when I have you back on the podcast, what are your comfortable goals you set for yourself for the next year and uncomfortable goals for yourself for the next year?
Crikey, as a person, my uncomfortable goal as an individual human is that I want to be as fit in my 50s as I was in my 20s, and I was a professional basketball player. So I feel like that's a pretty big uncomfortable goal, and I'm not very far into that. So I've only got 18 months left. So over the next year, I'm gonna have to transform myself, my body. But from a business perspective, I think that's pretty uncomfortable, right? Because I've told everyone I'm going to do it from the age of 25. I said I'll be as fit in my 50s as I was in my 20s, so I got to go and do it. From a business perspective, I think we're going to have a wonderful transformational year in EIS again. I think the things that I want to be saying in a year's time is that right now we've successfully delivered on the new logos that we've created over this year, because it takes sort of 9 months for those to come through. that I want to be talking about moving from fixing insurance to making insurance lovable. I really want to talk to you about some cases where we've helped make insurers' relationships with customers much better, but actually that we've got them to the point where you could just start describing them as having a meaningfully different relationship with their customers. And I'd love to be able to talk to you about some of that. The uncomfortable stuff we've got to do over this year is, do you know what? We're growing and in any of the core stats, but it's hard. I've been involved in businesses that have grown, and I've been involved in capital invested rip outs of businesses in decline. I think declining businesses is as hard as growing businesses. It's painful. It's, there's lots of things we've got to do. So I think our uncomfortableness needs to be and should be around our people. We need to protect our people, make sure they're happy, feel loved, and feel part of this, because we all contribute small bits. Me particularly, I contribute a tiny bit, but yeah, we've got people out there that need to realize that they're changing insurers, and I hope that uncomfortable truth of that we can change that over the next year, even improve it further.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks. We catch up over a beer and have you back a year from now.
Thank you so much. This has been a real honor to be part of your podcast and actually to have this conversation with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rory.